Welcome to the Sporkman Studios YouTube channel. Who is Sporkman Studios? Well, we're a group of comic book fans that enjoy all things comics. This includes movies, TV, manga, and Japanese anime. We created our own comics, and through the success and failures in the comic creation process, we were successfully published through Kablam and online and Indie Planet. And we hope to premiere on Comixology soon. I'm sure you're wondering what our goal is here on our YouTube channel. Well, that goal is to share our love of comics with you and show you how to successfully create and get your own comic published. We will give you tips, pointers, and how to avoid many common pitfalls that comic creators fall into.
Okay, so that is the intro video to the YouTube channel Sporkman Studios. If you're not on Twitter, if you're not in the YouTube thing that much, if you only just watch a few videos, you may not know about Sporkman, which is kind of unfortunate because these guys have been really good friends to the community. They've helped out a lot. They've done a lot of live streams with people. As you can see, they have their own YouTube channel. They have their own Twitter page, and they've been pretty active online trying to help us to get better comics made, trying to point out the problems with modern comics, trying to just tell better superhero stories. And it's unfortunate because, you know, I've been doing this whole Comicsgate thing ever since the beginning. I mean, I was subscribed to Diversity in Comics when he had less than 500 subs, before any of this was even a thing. And one thing that I have noticed is that, and I kind of hate to start this video off on a little bit of a soapbox here, but one thing that I have noticed is that, generally speaking, the community is not very good at supporting creators that are, you know, trying to come up with ideas that are in line with what we say we want. You can look at the success of Jawbreaker's Lost Souls, which is, you know, $310,000 and over 8,000 backers, which that's phenomenally successful, but that's a lot of that is just simply the result of the controversy that Richard Meyer has stirred up since the start of his YouTube channel. Even before the whole thing with Antarctic Press happened, a lot of this was just based on the controversy he'd drawn to himself. So what about creators like Eric Berry and Christopher Sylvia that deliberately avoid controversy? They just want to make good comics and agree that with us that Marvel is not doing that. And unfortunately, a lot of people just haven't seemed to have taken notice of comics like this. You can look at the other big success story that's come out of our community is, of course, Rags, which if you look at the Comic Central, which is a big website for indie comics, the Rags prologue is actually their #1 comic, and Rags #1 is their #3 comic. So that's really good. But the people behind Rags have had to work pretty hard to ingratiate themselves within the community. Obviously, not everybody has a lot of disposable income. Like, I happen to... It's not so much that I have a lot of money, it's that I happen to not have a lot of expenses. So, and people have families and stuff, so obviously you can't spend all your money on comic books, that'd be silly. But if you have a couple more dollars to kick towards smaller projects, like right here, the Rags project right here, another big... the community, Rodrigo Yabanes, or there's Red Ninja Momiji, which I have this. It says add to cart. I actually do have this. That's going to be probably the next sort of creator review that I do. So, yeah, that'll be good. Here's a Kickstarter. This guy, Sean Campbell, he's been pretty good on Twitter. As you can see, well short of his goal on Kickstarter. But there's still enough time to contribute to this if you haven't already. This looks... it's pretty weird, I'll admit that. But this looks like it could be really interesting. Here's something else that I was seeing. Omni #1. This one, I don't even know much about these guys. I just know that this looks interesting. So, yeah, you know, it's great that most of the people that are going to see this video have probably also contributed to Jawbreakers. But if you can, don't be afraid to look outside of that. There are a lot more comics out there than just this and crappy comics that Marvel puts out that we make fun of. Okay, so now let's talk about Sporkman. So, the main thing that I can use to describe this comic is that it's fun. And it's so rough in today's pop culture mainstream entertainment thing, because humor and of just mainstream entertainment has gotten so partisan and so culturally divisive that it's hard to know whether you're going to like something or not. I saw Deadpool 2 over the weekend, and Deadpool 2 is it's a really fun movie, but the whole time I was waiting for like these dumb, like, I don't know, anti-Trump or anti-Republican or anti-something, just divisive humor. It didn't really show up. There were a couple moments that bordered on it, but it wasn't really there. But I was kind of like afraid of it the entire time. So to read something like Sporkman that is just, it's kind of silly, it's kind of goofy, but there's none of that partisanship, there's none of that sort of cultural divide thing that I'm seeing. I'm not sure that the humor is going to be for everyone, but it is still really lighthearted and, like I said, fun. The in real life origin of Sporkman is fairly fascinating. So these are the people that worked on it. Eric Berry and Chris Sylvia were the writers. Chris Benetti, artist, was Gifney Ricotta. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And then J.W. Sims was the colorist. And here we get the history of Sporkman by Eric Berry. And he basically says that he was at a convention in the early 2000s, and there was some kind of contest for basically create your own superhero or create your own cosplay, something like that. And he came up with this new idea of a superhero that was based on a spork. And you can see the original design here, and then the final design here. And I actually really like this design. It's a little over the top, but as they show in the story, this thing that protrudes over his head, even though it must make going through doors a real pain in the butt, it actually is useful. And these spork gauntlets over his hands, even if those are just made of cheap plastic, they're definitely going to hurt. And the fact that even though he's kind of a goofball, he's still drawn with these heroic proportions. He's got these shoulder pads on that make him look even bigger. So, even though it's a kind of a goofy design, I actually ended up liking it. And apparently a lot of people at this convention did too, because when he came up with this costume and he put it together and he went up on stage with it, there was a very immediate positive reaction. And that's when he got the idea that, hey, maybe I can do an indie comic about this. And I actually want to go down to this short story that's sort of a bonus content for the Comic Central download. And I don't know if this came before the main story or not. I'm not 100% sure about that. But this is kind of like a short story that gets to the heart of what Sporkman is. Because you see him here. He does this Batman thing where he's basically jumping from car to car. He ends up jumping through the hood of a convertible. And gets to the scene of this car accident where the car is on fire. And how does he save him? Well, I mean, Sporkman's obviously in pretty good shape, but he doesn't have any kind of superhuman abilities that I can discern, so he can't flip the car over, so he ends up using this car jack instead, which literally anybody could have done. And he ends up saving the guy. And on the one hand, it's funny. The incongruity here of the overly dramatic superhero that just ends up doing something that, like I said, literally anybody alive could have used a jack to get the car off this dude that was trapped under it. But the point is that it was Sporkman that was there to do it. And, in a meta way, it's kind of like this comic book. It's like, could somebody come up with their own goofy superhero that sort of, makes fun of superheroes? Yeah, maybe. Maybe they could. But there's a lot to be said for the person that is actually the one that shows up to do something. It's true in superhero comics and it's true in life that just because anybody is, can do something, it's really about who is actually the person that does that thing. I mean, there's no reason that you couldn't, be a Hollywood actor right now or be a mainstream comic artist or run a marathon or something. But are you going to do it? Yeah, maybe not. So I don't know if that's what the author intended, that's sort of the, moderate life lesson that you could learn from this. But I think it is an interesting underpinning element, even if it's not intentional. And you can see the people that worked on this. Pencils were done by Tony Mielo? I'm not sure. Another name I don't know how to pronounce. They also have a website, which I'm not sure I've been to this website yet, but I might. And yeah, so then we get to the main comic here. If it'll load. Yeah, here we go. So the main story, it's nothing really groundbreaking. It's basically that Sporkman is just like in the real life origin of Sporkman. He's at a superhero comic convention thing, and the fake version of William Shatner tries to plot some kind of terrorist attack, and he partners up with a cosplay Darth Vader who takes himself a little bit too seriously to the point that he has a real working lightsaber. He goes to attack the fake Darth Vader here. He throws a tribble at him, and then he proceeds to fight him. And then we get some pretty decent shots here. Like for indie art, this is pretty good art. A lot of the humor is obviously pop culture based, which that can get a little bit grating sometimes in general. But I think here it works okay. And I also like how, on the one hand, yes, Sporkman is kind of, subverting and making fun of superhero conventions, or superhero tropes, rather, but he's also celebrating them. On the one hand, they're both just kind of, him and the fake Darth Vader here just kind of dressing up as heroes and villains, but then it turns out that they actually end up embodying those very ideas, even if they were only initially cosplaying as them. Scrolling back up here, so slow today. You can see some of the other sort of cosplay superheroes who insist that they're real superheroes, even though they don't do anything the rest of the comic. Apparently, this guy right here is another one that's based on a real life superhero that somebody made up that for apparently the same convention. It was Captain Pong, who has a working game of Pong on his head that distracts villains who want to play it, and then he takes them out while they're distracted. I thought that was clever, and apparently it's based off of a real-life incident that Eric Berry experienced. So I'm going to do, since this is an indie comic, since I want people to support it, I'm actually not going to spoil the entire thing, which is against my typical convention. But, yeah, like I said, we always say that we want new comics. We always say we don't want political comics. We always say that we just want fun comics. And this is that. This definitely falls into all of those things. Your mileage may vary on how much you get out of it, but I think that ultimately they took a very silly idea, which was an intentionally silly idea, and they made it work. That's kind of what Marvel is trying to do and failing at it. That's what that stupid Thundercats thing is doing and failing at it. By that metric alone, they succeed much better than a lot of mainstream media entities right now. So, yeah, I'm going to leave a link to the Comic Central store for publisher here. And apparently they're trying to come out with a volume 2. I don't know if or when that's going to be published, but hope it's fairly soon. So, yeah, this is Sporkman. Like I said, the next one I'm going to do is probably going to be either Red Ninja Momiji or I keep meaning to do My Hero Macadamia. I've done like 3 versions of that video, and each one I've had to scrap it because of things that were happening and the whole drama of what is going on in the real world. But yeah, I'm trying to do more sort of indie or creator-owned things like this. I tried this at one point. I wasn't able to. I just didn't follow through on it the way that I should have. So hopefully this time I'll make it stick. But yeah. Go check out Sporkman. Go check out Sporkman on Twitter and YouTube as well. And, yeah, in any case, this is Unranked Chevron signing off.